as Mark has mentioned, we still have no idea when we're going to see any rugby, and it does appear that we are waiting for football to blink first, which what's it, Project Restart they've got planning at the moment for venues or whatever coming up. So.
Yeah, but same problems now, Rich, because teams won't play at neutral venues, worried it's going to impact on their ability to survive, and and again, money talks, and it's going to be, are they going to have to in effect be paid off and no relegation? No, how's that going to affect then the championship? It's a strange one, I think. I don't think that's as clear cut as everyone would have you believe at the minute.
So the Premier League teams are not flying out to Perth then to finish the season, which I read somewhere today. Which has got to be the most, even more bizarre than New Zealand Warriors not being in New Zealand.
Like that year Argentina had a first division full of 36 clubs or something because someone was upset at something, and just have a mad league. Let's have the Rugby League full of all the teams in one division. I think it was Peter Fox, one of his ideas when we went to 3 divisions in the early 90s was to put all the teams in a hat and draw them out. So let's just have Wigan versus West Wales every other week.
I was going to say, you can imagine Sky will be rubbing their hands at the prospect. So rubbing their hands at St Helens and Wigan going down to West Wales. They can't wait for it.
It's like Wigan versus Warrington.
Oh dear.
Well, at least it'd be different, wouldn't it? One of my gripes is that we play the same fixtures too many times. If we're going to get into that. Then,
I think on how we restart, there is going to have to be a decision made about whether we do any or all of it behind closed doors. Because I think the one thing that probably will emerge over the next few days, possibly into weeks, is the fact that we'll be told when crowds can come back. And that's not something we can control. And if,
Phil, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I'd be surprised if you get a crowd at the grand final. I think everything is going to be behind closed doors.
So the decision's got to be made. At what point is it economically viable, if at all, for us to play any or all of our 2020 matches behind closed doors?
I think the Championship and League One seasons, you almost might as well cancel now, personally. I don't see the point of playing them behind closed doors, because the only reason to play behind closed doors is to fulfill our Sky contract, isn't it? And to get that source of income. So unless Sky are going to suddenly demand in the crisis of lack of content that all Championship and League One games should be on as well, then there's not really much point in playing those seasons, is there? Especially if we're, as it looks likely that we're not going to sanction any sort of promotion or relegation this season because of the extraordinary circumstances. So you do wonder what is the point there. Super League wise, like you say, we're all looking at the Premier League, aren't we? And whenever the Premier League gets up and running, it'll still be month, 2 months before I think we even look like coming back, because we're not at that level, are we?
The problem there, though, Paul, we mentioned it last week, is that with the Premier League as well, I think they said they're going to play the season in 5 weeks. When that 5 weeks ends, Sky are going to be begging for more live sport, and I think that's where Rugby League's got to come in, and I think Super League would have to be playing at that point.
Yeah, well, that would certainly be advantageous for us, wouldn't it? Something for us to take advantage of, whether the logistics can be worked out so that it's safe for the players and everybody involved. It doesn't put them at risk. That's got to be the plan. I think we've got to look at our own Project Restart, if you want to put it like that, as to how can we capitalise on that gap in the market without endangering any of our players or staff.
Would you start with the Challenge Cup and play that to a conclusion so you could? If we're talking about finals without fans, is there any point?
Well, there's no. What's the prize money for winning the Challenge Cup? I know it used to be in the front of the programme, and Silk could have donated this much money to the winners, but no, it's not a publicised thing these days, is it? No one says, "Oh well, Catalans have won 250 grand for winning the Challenge Cup." So do we just say, "Well, we'll just scrap it for this year and bring it back next year when we have got fans to see a final"?
Quite possibly. Depends how much time you've got to play your weekly rounds, doesn't it? In Super League, I think they will prioritise the Super League, getting that finished. And if it means scrapping the Challenge Cup, I think they'll do that. If you get into the realms where it's almost impossible to have any sort of meaningful league competition, then maybe you start thinking about some of the things that you were talking about last week in terms of your other exhibition events and different sort of competitions you can have that are short and sharp, I suppose. And the Challenge Cup would then play its own role in that. Other than that, I imagine that it's a likely casualty. Personally,
how would you have a grand final behind closed doors? How would that work?
Well, you'd have a final, and there would be no one there.
We saw the snooker, didn't we? We saw the old Judd Trump lifting the trophy. No one in the arena. You could say, look, it'll still mean as much to the players, even if the fans out there, they still want to win it, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, there's probably no point having it at Old Trafford, but
so,
you know.
Open your back garden.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Get it. I've floated this idea. Get it at Odsal. You know.
Oh man.
We're going to spend $6 million
on. Why don't they just put a TV? Why don't they put a TV on every seat and you can Skype in so that the players could see you? They didn't know you were there. There, you could Skype in.
Are you Mike Harris
office for that at Bellevue? Sorry, at the Mobile Rocket.
The Mobile Rocket. There's plenty of room for TVs. We can get some TVs in there. Don't worry about it. We've got a big screen. Everything there.
Brilliant.
Changing rooms. We can have we'd love to host the grand final. I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of the owners, but they'd love to host the grand final at the Mobile Rocket.
Well, it's the best pitch in the league, apparently. So there you go. If there's no fans there, that's all that counts, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Do what they did at Arsenal that time. Just have
the mural.
Murals of fans. Yeah.
Well, that's happened at Bellevue before, of course. When they filmed this Sporting Life, they had some cutouts in the crowd. And some would say we could have the final in Toronto then, based on that theory. We know, well, are the Catalans coming over to stay then? Because obviously you mentioned New Zealand Warriors are moving over to Australia for the rest of their season, which is definitely dictated to by television. We've got Toronto already over here. We're just waiting for the Catalans to make their move, I guess, because there's no sport being played in France, so they will have to. Otherwise, they'll have to just forfeit the season.
Well, Phil and I spoke to Sam Tompkins the other day on TalkSport 2, and he said, didn't he, Phil, that they're more than happy. If they've got to come to England, they'll come to England. They fancy winning it. That's what he said to us.
I think the plan in Bernard Gouache's mind is that they will gladly come over here and spend maybe up to 2 months decamped here playing games, provided they can go back and play some over there either at the end of August or beginning of September, when it sounds as though the French government has said sport can recommence. Because again, he's going to need a return on his investment. You know, the £16 million it can't be used by clubs like Toronto or the Dragons. And I must say, I thought that the statement from Bob Hunter of Toronto, in the knowledge that he wasn't getting any of the money, was absolutely fantastic. You know, there is diplomacy. It's absolute finest, praising the RFL and all the other clubs for getting access to money that he knows he can't have a part of. I think Bernard would say, yeah, I need a return. We'll gladly come over, but somebody's going to have to give me something to compensate either us not having any games when we go back, or you've got to find a way of coming over here. The issue for me isn't even so much them, because I think you can not have relegation this year. I think there is a compelling case that virtually every club in Super League would say it's not fair at this stage. And those towards the bottom end or owners of clubs that might be involved in a relegation spat would quite rightly say, I don't want to put any more money in if there's a chance that I'm going to lose it all down the drain at the end of the season. The issue is promotion, because the same applies to Toulouse, and nobody's really mentioned them. You know, are they prepared as a part-time club to come over and be based over here? Can they even do that? But they are the front runners for promotion. So, you know, it's all very well Lee saying we want to be promoted, or Featherstone saying we want to be up there and considered. But if Toulouse can't be involved in the mix, you can't have promotion either.
No. And I guess that adds into the mix of why I don't really feel that there's going to be a championship season, or certainly that's a growing feeling that I'm having, that it won't happen. There won't be a championship or League One this year. That's all. I guess that's that issue. In that case, it's a big one for us to overcome, isn't it? Getting Toulouse here, dealing with players at a different level, different standard, different wages.
What about if they all just played each other once, Paul? And, forget the home and away bit. Just play each other once. Obviously, that would shorten the season down to maybe 3 months and then have the playoffs at the end of that. Do you think they'd do that?
Well, I don't see any issue in that as long as you've got a playoff system. because it's not as if you have to play each other an equal amount of times for it to be fair. Once you've got a playoff system, that negates the need to have that sort of parity. And if you're playing all games behind closed doors, then that absolutely makes sense. This was an issue you talked about for Super League last week with Michael Carter, wasn't it? And I think Super League chief execs and chairman and owners are pretty reluctant to reduce the size of the fixture list because of what fans might say and what season ticket holders might say. But if it comes to it, and this is the only solution, then I think it makes sense. And again, it's all part of everyone having to give a little and to negotiate together about what's the best way through. And if we do certain things, then are certain demands going to come from certain groups or not? And it's about everyone being understanding, I guess, and working on a plan that can get us through it.
And interesting as well, sorry, if we do say no fans at all, then season ticket holders are going to have to be refunded or credited with a season ticket for next year. Clubs are going to be losing money next year without anything happening, aren't they?
Well, I think that's where the 16 million quid comes in, I think, in some respects. It will safeguard the clubs in the knowledge that there's going to be a period of time where, whether it's the end of this year or for next season, where they're not getting income from season ticket holders. I think the other thing is, at what point do we have to make the 2021 season sacrosanct? There's going to have to be a pre-season before we start playing again this year. There's got to be a decent pre-season before we go into 2021. Because the thing about that year is the World Cup at the end of it. If we are ever going to recoup monies, if we're ever going to profile the players in the manner that we want to, if we're ever going to give the sport a commercial lift, it's being successful in a World Cup over here. 2013, we didn't make the most of it, but it was a real boost for the game in terms of 500,000 people were exposed to it. Virtually every game was available to watch on some platform or other, either through Premier Sport or the BBC. This World Cup, again, there will be different demands to how it was originally set up, but you'll be able to watch every one of the 30-odd games in this. We have to make sure that 2021 is a cash generator, and if we have to lose part of 2020 to do that, somebody needs to make that decision fairly quickly. And it's like Paul says, if there is no point having a competition for the sake of having it this year, let's call it off. Let's make sure that 2021 is a year that we can recoup some of that money. I don't know when you make that decision, but that has to be part of the thinking, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be some time before we're getting to that point, because I suspect it's going to be some time before we can legitimately think about any sort of comeback. But I think you're right. I think 2021 has to be our all-important season, and there's no room for error there. There's no room for it being delayed if we have a problem like, this year. Again.
That's all well and good, Paul. But what happens when Sky go, yeah, you remember that 40-odd million quid we gave you for 100 live games and we've had 12? Well, all right, well, that works out. We'll just have 30 million back. That's soon, your 16 million loan's soon gone then, hasn't it? You can't just not play. That's just, I get the point, and I agree with you. Next year's got to be looked at, but you can't just not play.
Well, yeah, it depends what's realistic. But Sky have also got to be realistic, because if they say, we're taking that money off you, we're not paying you that money, then that is close to a death sentence for rugby league, and that's content for them going forward.
But is that why that's not going to happen? Is that why that's not going to happen though? They're not going to want. I'm sure they don't want to ask for their money back, but that's going to happen. We've been told that the talks are ongoing regarding that. If there's no rugby, they will want their money back. Simple as.
Yeah, but I think again, it's what you give them. Maybe in 2021, you over deliver, so that they're taking only 2 games a week at the moment. You offer them 4. But you say those matches are going to be next year because we can't clearly viably put them on this year. I think the other thing is now and we mentioned this last week, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. And you can almost see this jostling happen with Channel 9 and the NRL at the moment. Now is a really good time to be going to Sky and renegotiating the television deal. It was due to end at the end of 2021. Now is a good time to say, right, well, if you're prepared to throw in that you're not going to claw a lot, if any, money back this year, we're prepared to give you the next 2 or 3 years at a lesser rate. but a lesser rate that is guaranteed now so that we can budget and plan. I think that what Sky pay us, for us, is a lifeline. It's what keeps us going. But for Sky, I still think they get massive value for money from Rugby League. And I think
what about cricket though, Phil? The 100's gone. There's talk they want their money back. They're not going to pay them, or they're going to withhold that money. That's going to, very much damage cricket, isn't it? I just think I agree with you. As in, there's a deal to be done, and they are going to be crucial in what happens. I think in any decision that's made. But I also think they need to see that something's going to change, because I think for them in 3 years' time, Huddersfield against Salford on a Thursday in front of no people is not what they want to see.
Yeah, but I think the other thing about the 100 is that that's never been played before, and I think there's been a lot of public opposition to that competition anyway. So, they put
a lot of tickets, so apparently, to watch it.
Put up a lot of money for something that doesn't exist, then I think that's different to what have they had now, nearly 30-year relationship with Rugby League. So I still think the amount that they pay us, relatively speaking, for what we deliver for them is an economically sound argument, particularly if that amount will go down maybe for 2 or 3 years. So I genuinely do think that both sides of this debate need something out of each other, and that's always a really good time to negotiate.
It's almost like a one-day international. The situation we're in, to continue the cricket analogy, in so much as we know we're not playing at the moment. The covers are on, and the time we've got to play the game out is reducing day by day. It's how many overs we get in by the end, and how much money we have to give back to the people at the end as well. And we'll make sure we get in enough games so we don't have to give any money back. I think that's how it works in cricket. They always make sure they're on the pitch at least for a couple of overs to get their money. And of course, they make the money from the beer as well. Beer snakes banned, of course.
Are you suggesting we use the Duckworth-Lewis method to decide the rest of the season?
Well, I'd love to see a league table at the end of the season with quarter points and thirds of points, just to really confuse people in the future. I think that's what we need to do. Just because
I reckon you're right. We go down the cricket way, Rich, because look at that pitch and the way it was at Headingley. They'd have been fined for poor pitch, wouldn't they? The seamers would have had a field day bowling on that. Although I do understand it looks nice and green now, so yeah, fair play.
Apart from the Foxley, which is all over it apparently.
All right, okay. Are you sure that's not students?